Hello everyone, this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be doing a memory video, but this time we're doing it on the Game Boy. Now a lot of people say that the Game Boy was the first handheld to ever have changeable cartridges, but interesting enough that is not true because the very first handheld to ever do this was the Milton Bradley Microvision. But it wasn't very popular at the time, but it is true that it did come out before the Game Boy, but the Game Boy just happened to make handheld gaming a lot more popular than what it was. Okay, I just want to throw that out there because I thought that was interesting myself. Now the Game Boy is a system that I remember very well. In fact, the first time I've ever played a Game Boy, believe it or not, was actually waiting in the doctor's office when I was a young kid, and sometimes they would hand out Game Boys for you to play while you wait. And it's very funny that I remember this, but I actually do remember the two exact games that they had. They had Super Mario Land and Tetris, which I'll talk about more within this video much later. But one thing that may seem odd to you is that I actually never owned an original Game Boy until I found one much later on. So inside this case is the big beast itself, the original Game Boy. And like I said, I did not own this one for like way long ago, but this was one that I just happened to find randomly. But it's still a pretty cool thing to own, even though I can always just play them on the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance, mainly because the screen is really hard to see at times. But the very first Game Boy related system I ever owned happened to be the Game Boy Color. Well, to be more accurate, it was actually given to my sister, but then she ended up giving it to me eventually. But I still played on it every now and then. And what makes this really odd is that I actually mostly own Game Boy games more than I own Game Boy Color games. So I won't be able to get a chance to talk about Game Boy Color games, or at least not very often. But for now, let's talk about the games that I grew up with on the Game Boy. So the very first original Game Boy game that I ever owned was Super Mario Land and the 6 Golden Coins. Now this is not the one that I played during that waiting room there, that was the very first Mario Land. But this is the one that I mostly played like all the fucking time. Mainly because I never owned the first part. But anyways, this is probably one of my most favorite Mario games ever. The level designs are great, I really like the music, I also really like the settings that they use in this one. Like the Macro Zone, the Pumpkin Zone, and even the Mario Zone, which is kind of weird, but the one thing that I really did like was that Legoland level. And the other thing I liked was that the main villain was not Bowser, it was Wario, which I always thought was really neat. So yeah, this was one game that I used to play the shit out of like all the time. And yet, I only beat the game once, because the Wario Land stage is freaking hard. But yes, I would actually put this game on par with something like Mario 64. You can call me crazy for it, but I just really love this game that much. And now the next game we're going to talk about is Zelda DX Link's Awakening. And yet, I still have the manual for this game, surprisingly. I found this Zelda game to be pretty great, although it's been a really long time since I've last played it, but the one thing I'll always remember about it is the dungeon music, and the Mario cameos such as like Shy Guys and Chain Chomps, and I even believe Ward is even in this game. And oh yeah, I also remember there was a store where you can steal stuff from, and then when you go back into the store, the guy like kills your ass. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember things as I go. But I remember this game took me quite a while to beat this one. Maybe I should replay through it again because it's been such a long time. But this and Oracle of Seasons were definitely really great Zelda games on handhelds. Reason why I didn't say Ages is because I never owned a copy of Ages and only played it very briefly. But still, can't go wrong with any of these three. And the next one I'm going to be talking about is kind of a no-brainer, but it's Pokemon Blue and Yellow. Yeah, this was back when the Pokemon phase was like really hype. But the one that I originally owned was Blue, but then a couple years later, a cousin of mine ended up giving me Yellow. I never owned a Red for some reason, but oh well. So yeah, this is a game I definitely have some pretty good memories on, such as beating the game and beating all the gym leaders, catching all of the legendaries that I could, although I never caught 150, but that's something I just never bothered with. But I also remember fighting other people using a link cable, and yep, I was one of the people that actually owned the link cable. And of course, because now that I have two Pokemon games, I used to cheat and send some Pokemon over to the other game. And of course, how could I forget naming your Pokemon and naming the rival. And yes, I always gave them stupid ass hilarious names, I admit to that. But there's nothing wrong with that because I always found that makes the game a lot more funnier. Especially for a game like this. So yeah, Pokemon was a very fun RPG on the go. Even though these days I am kinda a bit burnt out on Pokemon, but maybe eventually I will have to replay through some of them again, but that won't be for a long time. But still, fun and simple games. Now I'm going to be talking about Mortal Kombat 2. Now I know what you're thinking, really? A shitty version of a really good game? Now I will agree that Mortal Kombat 1 on the Game Boy was pretty terrible, but I found this game to be quite good considering that it's on a Game Boy. Like, the game doesn't feel too slow, and the controls are actually, like, okay. But obviously this isn't as good as the other versions, but hey, for a handheld, it's definitely a lot better than what you would get. But anyways, I used to play this game quite a lot, mainly because, well, I really wanted to play Mortal Kombat games, but I didn't own any of them at the time, so I had to stick with this one. But at least I actually got my fix off with the better one. And believe it or not, I actually have beat this game 3 times. The first time I beat it with Sub-Zero, then I beat it with Katana, and then I believe I beat it with Reptile, I think. I'm actually surprised I even remember that, or at least somewhere around there. But I also remember Shao Kahn being very, very hard in this one, especially when he does his shoulder charge like over and over again. Although it is kind of unfortunate I never was able to play this game with another person, considering that I never knew anyone else that had Mortal Kombat 2, but I still had a pretty good time. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about a game called Quarth. Now, I have no idea what a Quarth is, but I know it as a shoot-'em-up puzzle game. It's a game where you control a spaceship and you have to shoot at blocks, and it plays sort of like Tetris, but just from the ground up. It's very unique, and it's also very challenging too, and of course, very addicting. In fact, I actually played this game more than I played Tetris on the Game Boy. Then again, whenever I played Tetris, I usually stick to the NES version for some reason. Now, I can't remember what my high score was in this game, then again, that was something I never really paid attention to. But I do remember, I think I got pretty far. At least I'd like to think I got far, but I can't really tell you for sure. I would have to replay this one again, too. Yeah, as you can tell, I haven't really played my Game Boy games in such a long time. But this is a game I don't hear too many people talk about, and I also have to thank my cousin for giving me this one. Because if it wasn't for that, I'm sure I probably never would have heard about this game until way later on. So the next one we're going to be talking about is DuckTales 2. Now this was a game I randomly found at a thrift store many years ago, and I thought it was pretty cool considering that, well, I used to watch this show when I was a kid. So believe it or not, this was actually the first DuckTales game I ever played. Yeah, unfortunately I never played the NES game until like much later on. But either way, I remember this one being a pretty good version of the game. It was tough and I was never able to beat it, but I did have a lot of fun with it. And how can I forget about the most awesome jumping mechanic ever with the pogo stick? Definitely awesome. And now we're going to be taking a look at Metroid 2, Return of Samus. Now I used to own this game. This was another game I randomly found at the thrift store many years ago, but unfortunately, I don't know what the hell happened to it. But it is interesting to note that this was the very first Metroid game I ever played. Then after this, it was Metroid Prime on the GameCube. And let me tell you, this game was really fucking hard, and this was one game I was never able to beat. Actually, come to think of it, I don't even think I ever beat a Metroid game before. Then again, I'm never good at these kinds of games, but they are very fun to explore around. So when I first played this, I got stuck. A lot. But it's still a pretty impressive game to have on the Game Boy though. And now we're going to be talking about Game & Watch Gallery. This is yet another game I do not own, but I used to play this one a lot when a friend of mine let me borrow it. It's pretty much one of those Game & Watch handheld things but mixed into one, but with Mario characters in it. When I first played this game, I had no idea what this whole Game & Watch thing was, so I really had no idea what I was getting into. But they're very simple and very fun games. And I still remember the reason why this person let me borrow the game, and that was because he said he didn't like it. And I'm like, really? How could you not like this game? I mean, it's really simple and it's easy to pick up and play. And then what he said to that was, well, it doesn't play like any of the other Mario games, so yeah, I don't like it. Stupid, I know, but then again, we were kids, and not only that, but like I said, I'm pretty sure he didn't even know what the hell a Game & Watch thing even was either. But then I remember saying to him that, well, if you don't like it that much, well, why don't you just give it to me? But of course he said no, but he still let me borrow it anyway. And of course, I gave it back to him because I'm a good person like that. It's just one of those funny stories I still remember about this game. But still, it's just a small addicting little game. And now we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy Legends 2. This was another game I randomly found at a thrift store, and believe it or not, it still has the box and everything. And what can I say, this game is definitely great. I never finished it, but I do remember getting pretty far through it. And I really like the different party members that you can have within this game. Like you can have robots and slime monsters, it's pretty great. Also, I just mentioned this game pretty recently within my Strange Origin videos telling you how this game is actually a part of the Saga series. But of course, during the time when I first played this game, I had no idea about that. And at the time when I first played this game, I thought this was the best RPG on the Game Boy. Although I never played Legends 1 or 3, or I never even played Adventures, even though that one plays very differently, but still. This game is probably one of my favorite games on the Game Boy itself. And yep, I definitely put that up there right up next to Mario Land 2 and Zelda Link's Awakening. And finally, the last game I'm going to mention here is Kirby's Dream Land, back before he was pink. Because on the cover, he looks white, and because this was originally supposed to be played on a regular Game Boy, you can't really tell what color he's actually supposed to be anyway. But I always found that to be really weird ever since I played Super Smash Bros. On the N64. Yeah, believe it or not, that's how I first heard about Kirby. And I know there's supposed to be a real reason why he changed from white to pink, but I'm not going to get into that here. So playing this game after Smash Bros, I was really confused why in this game you couldn't suck people up and take their powers. But despite that, I still enjoyed the game. So I just assumed that they might have added in much later on in another installment, and well, so they did. But still, a very fun game that I do have very fond memories of, especially when I first beat the final boss in this game. I also remember beating the other Kirby game, Kirby's Adventure on the NES on the same year, so I do remember that pretty well. And of course the tree boss always being a thing. Now if I remember right, you just have to shoot like the apples back at him like anywhere you want, it doesn't have to be the nose, right? I used to always just shoot it at the nose just because, well, it was just like right there. But yeah, like I already said, it's been way too long since I've last played some Game Boy games. So I do apologize if I haven't really said a whole lot about each thing, but I think age is just getting to me already maybe, I don't know. So that's all the Game Boy memories I'm going to share with you guys with some of the games that I've played. There's still a couple more, not a whole lot more, but there's still a couple other ones, like there was a Star Wars game that I have, and even the big old hunk of junk, the Game Boy camera thing. But as always, I usually try and keep it at 10 games at least. So yeah, I definitely spent quite a bit of time on the Game Boy, even though I mostly played them on a Game Boy Color. But I also have played some Game Boy Color games, not a whole lot though, but I have played some. I don't own very many of them. But I don't know if I'm going to do a memory video on the Game Boy Color just yet. So for the next memory video, I want you guys to pick for me out of these two. Which one would you like to see me do? Memories with arcades, or memories with PC games? Now I will be doing both, but which one would you like to see first? So I know which one I can work on next. So anyways, what are some of your favorite Game Boy memories? And you can say them however you want, either with the comments or a video response, whatever the hell else you want. So give out your thoughts if you'd like. So, that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and commenting.